the Booze and Moves podcast, and this is my other half.
Hi, I'm Katrina.
Welcome to our podcast. We hope you love it.
Hi guys, we are back with part 2 of the Black Phone. We kind of just rambled and had a lot to say about the Black Phone in general. So we just kind of had to split it up into 2 to make it make sense and make it a little bit easier so you didn't have a 2-hour podcast in just one go. So we are back.
We are so excited. So we're going to just pick up where we left off from part 1. So if you haven't listened to part 1, go listen to part 1. Let us know how you feel about 2-parters. Do you prefer them? Do you just want one long one? This one, I mean, because we record everything all at once, like when we're talking about a movie, we don't like take a break. So you let us know. Does the flow work for you guys? And are we good to go? Yeah. So we hope you enjoy it and we hope you stick it out to the end.
Yeah, it's a good one. So welcome back to the Black Phone.
So after we see Max clean up his Coke, we get like a shot of him sitting on the couch, just chilling. And the camera pans down, kind of like goes through the floor and then is in the basement. And we see Finn. And when I first saw this, I was like, was that a transition or was that a hint? Because I really wasn't sure at first. But Finn is pretending to sleep. And the grabber is in the basement and he just says, I know you're not sleeping. And he's hiding in a shadow. And we hear a dog barking in the background.
Bum, bum, bum.
Sounds very similar. And the grabber tells Finney that he was thinking about letting him go. Asks for his name. Tells him that usually he figures out the boys' names from the newspapers. And they print out a nice big photo. And then Finney tells him his name is Taylor. And he lies about his name. So the grabber steps into the light and it's a frowny mask. He says, I almost let you go. And he calls him Finney and like slams the door. And I was like, I can't tell if he's lying. I really can't tell if the grabber is lying.
Because he slams down like the tray of food. He's got like the newspaper hidden under his arm. And like the way he says, he's like, nice try, Finney. Mm-hmm. And he knows it. And I think that it's an interesting thing because he's saying that he doesn't know who these boys are until like basically like they're dead.
Right.
And then he sees about them. So, you know, when the grabber says everything's different, I mean, everything is different. He either, and we don't know exactly how long he's had him, but we know that, you know, somebody's in his house that kind of messed up his whole routine. Finney's not playing naughty boy and going upstairs and getting beaten and or killed. We don't, know exactly. And then he's seeing the names in the paper. So really everything is different. But yeah, like exactly. He's like, I almost let you go. I kind of like, I want to believe him that like.
I really did.
Maybe
I really wanted to believe him.
My friend was like, absolutely not. He was not going to let him go. And I'm like, maybe I'm in love with him, but like, I think he might have let him go. Like, but I don't know because he's so up and down. I don't know. Would he have?
I feel like he would have but was he also doing it just to mess with Finney? We don't know. And then there's the whole thing of like, if he's not finding out until after the fact about these boys, is seeing Finney in the paper prior to him dying, humanizing Finney? Mm-hmm. I have no idea. The grabber is just one big black hole of not like, I know nothing. Like we know some things, but I feel like I know nothing and it's frustrating.
I'm going to hold my thoughts. My thoughts.
Okay. We'll leave it there.
So we've got another phone call and Finney answers it and the voice just says, you don't have much time. We know that the grabber is upstairs and he's wearing an open jacket. So he's shirtless, but he's got like, not a North Face jacket, but like that kind of that style on. And he is just fucking waiting for Finney to come upstairs so he can play naughty boy. And he ends up falling asleep while he's waiting. The voice on the phone is saying that the grabber, he's not sleeping well. He's off of his game. He's out of his routine. He's worried that his brother's going to figure it out. So I think that we've kind of, cemented the fact that Max is the grabber's brother. Max is working on this case, and maybe Max is close to figuring out what's going on. So I think it's really bold of the grabber to still be doing all this stuff and to even leave the option open for Finney to come upstairs.
Right.
It's
because
wild.
and I always thought, okay, so we're about to get to the padlock thing. And I'm like, does his brother not find it weird that there's a padlock on like the front door?
That's something that I thought about too, but I mean, the grabber must be staying up late and getting up early. That's my only logical answer, because we saw the door before and it didn't have the padlock on it during the day.
Oh, that's true. So maybe it was, just when his brother is sleeping or something, which I'm like, your brother better be a hard sleeper. Because if you're going to play naughty boy and be beating a child in the kitchen, that child is going to scream and cry.
Yeah, I have no idea. But,
also, question.
Yeah.
Okay, so in this scene on the phone, like, there's a floating boy who's like upside down with his like throat slit. Is that Griffin?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the boy on the phone.
Ugh, that was just creepy.
Yeah, that was a big jump scare. So, actually, this is a really good thing. So, Finney kind of hears something.
Yeah.
And then he's using his rocket pen, which also is a flashlight. And he's I don't know. I don't care. This movie has no faults. I don't care. Rocket pen, flashlight, I don't care. And then he's just kind of moving his flashlight around. And when I was rewatching this, for like the millionth time, there actually are a few jump scares in it, but this is the only one that really settled with me. And we just see a boy hanging upside down with like blood dripping all over him. And then he just points toward the phone. And then Finney picks it up because it has it rung. It's so great. I think every scene where Finney is having a conversation with someone is done differently. It's exciting. I'm engaged. I want to know everything that's going on. And Griffin says, you don't have much time. And it boils down to that he wrote down his bike code, like the bike lock code, in the wall, but he doesn't remember the exact order. So these like 5 or 6 numbers that are together, I guess it's got to be 5 of them. Finney's like, well, what order is it? And he's like, I don't know. You don't have much time. But Finney,
helpful.
Well, I mean, yeah, but it's so tense. Finney ends up going upstairs. He sees the grabber is sitting in the kitchen and he's asleep. So Finney's just kind of poking around. He gets to the front door, and then after a couple tries, he gets the right lock combo out. And then as soon as the lock clicks, the dog starts going nuts, barking, which wakes up the grabber. Finney, he gets out, like he's outside, he's running, he's screaming for the grabber, and the grabber goes and gets his van. I will say, like, my one little critique about this, and I can only say this as somebody who has watched a bunch of horror movies, so I know what to do in a horror movie situation. This is a kid in the 70s who's scared out of his mind. He's running in one direction. The van is like on the road beside him and then like kind of cuts him off so he can't go further. And then the grabber grabs him again. But my logical brain is like, okay, like the van is coming like on the side in front of me. I'm going to try and double back. I mean,
yeah. Or get into a bush, like go across a bush, like not like, or go to the very next door neighbor and just pound on the door as hard as you can. Get in light, get it, yeah.
Yeah, because we see, like, there's been commotion made, so a couple of the neighbors' lights go on, and the grabber has Finney on the ground, and he's like, if you make any kind of noise, I will gut you right here. And that's terrifying. and then they're just kind of waiting for those lights to go off, and it's so sad. And I don't know, would he have stabbed him right then and
Yeah.
there if he did make noise? Would he not have? Because then that would have called the neighbors out, and then his need would have been to just escape. There's so many options. I don't
Right.
know, but Finney
And
doesn't make any noise.
I will say, in Finney's defense, since he is like 12, he probably isn't aware that how hard it is to like turn a car around, especially a big ass van. So it makes sense that it didn't come to his mind to like try and double back.
Yeah, it's
fear
sad.
and it's adrenaline. And in my head, I'm like, those lights of the neighbors was just Finney's hope, just boop, getting shut out.
They're gone.
Yep.
So the grabber says, "Night, night, naughty boy," and then like knocks him out.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of like a little dreamy thing. Finn gets tossed back on the bed, and it's just like a really static camera shot. And the grabber is walking back towards the upstairs. Samson's still barking, and Max wakes up, and you just hear the voices, and it's like, "What's going on? Sam's like, why is he barking?" And then the grabber's just like, "Oh, Samson's just barking at something. It's no big deal. Go to bed, Max." And he just slams the door. It's so sad.
Yeah.
He was so close.
And when so Yuri watched this with me the first time, and she's like, when he went upstairs and was in the kitchen, Yuri was like, "I would have sliced his neck right there. Just got it done and over with." And then, but I was like, yeah, but as a kid, it's still terrifying. Like,
I know, and that's also the thing. It's like, he's spending so much time on that combination lock, and like obviously, that's where the movie is wanting us to go. But I'm like, could he have tried any windows?
Right. Or Max's fucking bedroom. He wouldn't know where Max's bedroom door was, but
yeah, he didn't
even
actually know somebody was there for sure.
Even hiding somewhere in the house, waiting for the grabber to like someone to leave and get, I don't know. There were a lot more options, but I get that he was told the combination, he was told to run and escape, and he did what he was told. Which
Right.
A lot of this is Finney doing what he's told. And it also goes back to Finney doesn't like violence, so that explains why he wouldn't just slit the grabber's throat.
Yeah, it's
so
for us to critique it, and I see a ton of stuff like this. It's like, well, in the mind of the character, this is what's going on, but it's so sad on our side when we're like, this will help you, this will help you, this will help you, and then we can't do anything.
Yeah. It's one of the other things, because I was like, when we get further into like the hints and everything, it's just like Finney does a lot of stuff that is shocking, and I'm surprised he can do. But after the grabber grabs him again and all of that, Gwen wakes up, and she had a dreamless night. So she wakes up and she's just cussing at Jesus and like, "What the fuck, Jesus?" And she's like, "Are you even real?"
Started laughing.
Yeah, because it's one of those things where it's like, she's got a mouth on her. She doesn't care who you are. She's going to tell you like how it is. So she starts questioning the existence of Jesus and everything. And she's like, it goes back to Finney, and the phone is ringing, and he's just like, "Fuck you." But he still answers it because he's just frustrated at this point, which is understandable.
Yeah, and that's a really good comparison. Like, they're both like Finn and Gwenny. They're like, what the fuck? What are we supposed to do?
Yeah. And so he answers it, and it's like this angry ass kid on the phone. And he's like, "Today's the day, motherfucker." And
yeah, because who he's talking to, they're like back to back on the bed. So the kid who we learn is Vance Hopper, who was the bully that used to bully Finney, that we learned about in the beginning. He's kind of like not making sense. He's not being super conversational.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't seem like it's all fitting what Finney is saying to him. But then Finney figures out it's Vance, probably just because of, the mannerisms that he's using.
Yeah. we go to what looks like one of Gwen's dreams, and it's a flashback to Vance playing a pinball game, and like I think it's like a gas station or store, and somebody bumps it and he loses, and he just beats the hell out of him. He gets arrested, and then we see Gwen get into the cop car with Vance. And I think this is the first time we've seen Gwen actually in one of the dreams participating.
Yeah, I think that this is, like I mentioned before, every instance with every kid is so different. But this one kind of goes from like a distinct memory because Finney was in that, bodega, convenience store, wherever, saw the fight happen between Vance and the other kid. And then Gwen kind of walks onto the scene, and then it goes into that like film surrealist dreamscape image. And it's really, really interesting because, she's got an active connection in it now.
Yeah, and when they're in the cop car, Gwen actually hears Finney, and
yeah, he's like coming through the police radio.
Yeah, and it's Finney trying to talk to Vance, but then Vance is talking to Gwen when he says right here, and he's pointing. The first time it doesn't make sense because he's on the bed and he's just pointing at a wall. But what we learn is that he's in the car with Gwen, pointing at the house, getting out and just showing Gwen, it's this house. This is the house. So Gwen wakes up. I think she was like in the bathtub or something. Was this?
I think it is that one. Yeah, I think you're right.
And she wakes up, and her dad is basically telling her like, get ready for school. But Vance continues the conversation with Finney and is trying to tell him where he can dig in the wall so that he can get out through the deep freezer that's in a storage room. And this is the part where I think this seems a little far-fetched for me. I've broken concrete before. It's like he's using the toilet lid to break the concrete wall, and he's putting in all kinds of work. He finally gets through. Sheetrock. It looks like concrete to me. No, it's concrete.
I guess I thought it was sheetrock because he's putting in effort, but like he still gets through it. Like, and the toilet lid is like mostly intact.
I know.
I thought it was sheetrock.
And that's why I was confused because I'm like, if it's concrete, that's going to break eventually. Also, when he's done, it's a perfect square. Like if I'm trying to escape, I'm making a hole big enough for my body, and that's it. This is the part where like I was like confused.
Well, I thought it was a concrete. It was a deep freeze. So when he finds like the hole for it, he's making like the door so he can pull out the door to get into it.
That makes sense because he does have to unscrew it. But if it is concrete, I don't know how he did that with a toilet lid because it looked thick. Maybe I don't know anymore. I don't know what it is.
Either way, he still gets through, and he's in the deep freeze, and there's a ton of meat in there, and I'm like, do you know how much that would cost in 2022? All that meat? There's so much fucking meat in there.
And it's nice. And he's just like tossing it out, trying to get through. He's just like trying to make room for himself.
Yeah, he's doing that. And because it was all individually wrapped. And I'm like, that's a fucking good steak. Like, I can tell like the cut of it. And I was like, shit.
Yeah. You take that home with you, Finney, so you can have a nice steak dinner when you get home.
Yeah, exactly.
But then he realizes that it's locked and he can't open it from the inside. And really, I feel like this is the first time we've seen Finney like break down, crying, lose it, which is surprising to me because I'm like, if I was there, I would have broken down crying 70 times already. And we know Rachel, she's already broken down, cried,
I would break down crying. I'm like, Grabber, why don't you want to hang out with me?
Is it your brother? You can bring him too. It's fine.
It's fine. It's okay. We know he's got extra mask pieces, so it's okay. Like they can both wear one. I don't care. It's fine.
We don't judge.
But the next scene, it's really great because then the phone rings again, and Finney, he's really dejected, and he picks it up, and then they kind of do like a sweeping shot. So like the camera passes over Finney and then we see Robin is in the room with him. And I'm just like, I love those little gay boys. They love each other so much.
They do. They had a really, like, even though we never saw them hang out like outside of school or whatever, like they really just had like a good connection.
Well, I mean, Robin had said something in the bathroom in the beginning, like, like, hey, can you help me with my homework again?
Right.
So we know that there is something. And the movie never says anything about, Finn and Robin being anything. And we know Finn has that crush on Donna, but I love those little gay boys.
Robin tells him, don't cry. And Finney obviously lies. He's like, I'm not crying. He's like, I can see you. And he's like, I've been with you this whole time, which
and now I'm crying.
Yeah, there's a note on here. Rachel says, I'm not crying. I'm not in her note. She is. She's still crying. And Robin tells him, today's the day that you stop taking shit, and just trying to like pump him up, give him some kind of like fire in his soul, because he's just lost it all at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And he basically says, you've always been good at taking a hit. And I'm like, so Finn is basically just a really good punching bag. Like, that's what it is at this point.
He has been. I mean, all of your points are correct. He doesn't like violence. He shies away from it. He just deals with it. So
at this point, he's forced to face it, and he's just forced to do something about it. Like, he's no longer able to stand by and be neutral anymore.
So, in the tradition of all of the kids telling Finn something to do to help him get out, Robin tells him to use the weapon in his hand, the phone, against the grabber, to fill it with dirt. And then they do this little choreography thing where Robin's kind of teaching him how to fight a little bit. And he's like, step forward, step back, step forward, and then swing the phone. And they do that, I mean, maybe 8 times, something like that. And then they're kind of like, Robin is telling Finney to do it and like practice the motion of it. So as you're watching it, it kind of becomes choreography where Finney's a little out of sync with what Robin's doing. But then as he keeps going, Finney, like, they're both in sync. And it's beautiful that, Finney has grown into his own. He's going to be, as good of a fighter as Robin is. And Robin tells him, if you can't get out for you, get out for me. And I'm just like, I love you guys so much. And I think it's just really beautiful. Robin says that that's the last phone call. And he just kind of like leans into the corner. And then Finney like walks in front of him to hang the phone up. And then, like, that's it. And it's so beautiful.
After the call, Finney sees that it's raining outside, and then it cuts to Gwen riding her bike in her little raincoat, and it's just giving It vibes. Like, she looks like the little kid in a yellow raincoat in the rain.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
She's riding her bike trying to find this house because she had that dream where Vance said, this is it, and got out, kicked the fence down. So she's trying to find it. All the dead boys just pop up out of nowhere in front of her, causing her to crash.
It's so fucking scary. Like, they're just like there because Gwen's riding her bike and she's like, please, Jesus, like, I know I got mad earlier, but if you're real, I need your help. Please, please, please. And I get it. Like, I've had conversations like that. And this is one of my notes from earlier when she's like, Jesus, what the fuck? I'm a Christian. My relationship with God is very conversational. And I'm, I'll be driving sometimes and just talking to God about stuff. And then sometimes I'll be like, I know you already know these things, but I'm just going to tell you anyway, which is what I do with you. And I think that, that's something that resonated with me is, just the conversational piece of it, even though it's really one-sided. And then ghosty boys pop up. So, I mean, it works.
Yeah.
God's real, you guys.
I thought it was interesting because I made a note earlier when he was crying. I thought about it and I was like, I have not heard Finney talk to himself this entire time. Like I've never heard him have an actual conversation with himself, which if I'm locked in a basement, I'm going to be having multiple conversations with myself at the same time to just keep my brain from like, bleh.
Yeah,
But,
you're right. I mean, the only thing he says that I think of is just that if he was going to get it out normally, then the other kids would have gotten out too.
and that's what he did like the very first day, basically. And
Yeah.
ever since then, he was either talking to the phone or to the boys or to the grabber. Like
Yeah.
I don't remember him talking to himself. Like even when he was like prepping everything, like I don't like hyping. He didn't even hype himself up or nothing. And I thought that was different.
Yeah. So Gwen, she falls off her bike when she sees the ghosts, and then when she looks up, it's the house from her dream. So she runs home, gets the card that the detective gave her from her dollhouse, and then she calls.
Yeah. And then it goes back to the house and it's Max doing cocaine and he just has this look and it zooms in on the map and he's just realized everything just like falls into place and he's having this realization. He's like staring at the basement door and just like, it's one of those things where it's like, you have to know. Like you can't like, live with yourself.
Yeah, because the grabber is gone. We see that he's shopping like in like a hardware store or something like that. He's buying bags of lime. You know what that means? And then a couple of other things. And at the same time, Max, he's just standing in the kitchen, like his face is contorting all kinds of ways. He's like, do I really want to go check the basement? What if I'm right? But what if I'm wrong? And it's just, you see that. So he goes downstairs and he just opens the door and he's like, holy shit. And Finney's like, please help me. My name's Finney. Like I'm trapped down here. And Max is just like, oh, don't worry. Like he's not here. He got called into work. Wink, wink. Finney's like, please, like, can you call my dad? Can you get me out of here? Max is like, I'll help you. And then
he gets distracted. He's like, do you want to know how I found you? Bro, no. Like, I want you to get me the fuck out of here. The door opens up all the way and the grabber is at the top of the stairs with an axe. And without hesitation, just axe to the head, which is another, he is Joseph, creep vibes.
Oh, yeah. Yes,
see?
Exactly.
Axe to the behind him, stand behind him, axe to the head, Joseph, grabber, same people. Which Rachel did find Joseph attractive as well. So I think it's you.
I didn't. I liked Aaron.
You said Joseph was hot.
I think you're mixing things up. Patrick Bryce is hot because he's like 6'5".
We're going to have to revisit the creep episode. Anyway, the police show up to the house that Gwen had originally seen that the boys pointed to. So all of this is kind of like happening at the same time. And it's just like a back and forth at this point. So the grabber has killed his brother. And then we flash to the house and the police are going in, inspecting, and it's just empty. There's no furniture. There's nothing there. It just looks like nobody's lived there. It's just really disheartening because it's like, we thought that they were going to be there. Go back to the grabber.
And he's in like a full devil mask. Like it's only the top half, but it's got the horns. You can see his mouth for the first time, like since the kidnapping. And like him's looking real scary. And he just looks at Finney like with this deep gravelly voice and he's like, look what you made me do. And I start singing Taylor Swift in my head. And then he's like, you made me kill my brother. And he like looks down at him. He's like, he was an idiot, but he was my idiot.
And in my notes, I put me about Rachel. Like that. Well,
thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey guys, I guess we're still going to be friends after this episode. After all.
Congratulations. This is where I put that he's looking like Kevin Bacon, but he tells Finney that normally he would use a knife, but Finney is special. And I'm like, I wouldn't want to be special. He said he was really going to make it hurt. Oh. And then he calls Samson down. He brings the dog and like chains the dog in the corner. I'm assuming to keep the kid from leaving, like being able to escape during this whole thing, which he could have just shut the door, to be honest.
Oh, I thought he was bringing it down, like, because he's like, I want to make it hurt, and it's like a Cane Corso, like that's a dog
It is
right there, like,
beautiful though. It's a
yeah,
beautiful,
like
like all black dog.
yeah, a beautiful little baby. I love him so much,
You
but like,
just scratch his face.
I thought he was gonna have him like maul him.
I didn't
That's
think
what I
about that.
thought.
I would assume that the grabber enjoys inflicting the pain personally. I just assumed that the dog is like a fear factor to like amp it up.
I mean, both are probably correct, because it's just like when he says, I want this to really hurt, and then he calls the dog.
Yeah.
So
it's just,
I don't know.
It's mental too. So
I mean, either way, I mean, I think both of our perceptions are correct, because
we don't find out. Yeah.
Spoiler alert. And Finney is still holding onto the phone. He had already filled it up with the dirt from the hole he had been digging in the hallway, because he kept that covered with a rug the whole time, so the grabber never really noticed. I don't know why the grabber never noticed the rug being moved, but because I love it.
Or that the window grate is gone, like, because he pulled it off with the cable, and there was just a lot of stuff that I'm like, he's just not very. But he also said that he wasn't going to be down there as often, but I think he was just so distracted from this not being the normal thing. So
yeah, that's really all we can say.
He made some mistakes. So
the grabber picks up the axe and he swings it at Finney, and then Finney runs into the hall, and we're gonna get like a tiny bit of a fight scene, but it's being intercut between the cops looking around the empty house from where they are. And we're getting this moment of elation because Finney's fighting back, but then the cops aren't getting anywhere, and it's conflicting emotions. But Finney runs into the hallway, the grabber runs after him, and then the grabber falls into the hole that Finney had been digging through the rug, and then his ankle breaks because he had the window grate on the bottom of it, and you see it and the sound of it, and the grabber's just like screaming, and I get it. Finney has the phone in his hand, and he's using Robin's choreography, like going forward, going back, like going forward, and then swinging. And then he gets a couple good hits in at the grabber, but then the grabber grabs him and then has his back to his chest, and he's starting to choke him. And Finney reaches behind him and rips off the mask, and then he just loses it.
Yeah. It's like he was like burning or something, because he was like covering his face and screaming. And I never really like understood that. And I'm like, maybe the mask is a way for him to like separate himself from what he's doing.
Mm-hmm. That's what I got.
And I think you had mentioned that, so that's probably where I got it from, because I was confused. Like, he's acting like it's burning him, and I was like, what? But
I thought he was just freaking out, like he could be seen. He's covering his face from what the mask was covering on him.
Yeah.
But he lets go of Finney, so Finney kind of gets himself out, and the phone still has some of the cord attached to it, and then he wraps it around the grabber's neck, and he's pulling, and he's kind of behind him, like pulling the grabber's neck with the cord onto his shoulder, and then the phone rings. Yeah, he's just like, go ahead.
And Finney answers the phone, and he goes, "It's for you." And it's all the dead boys just saying everything that they've ever wanted to say to him, Well,
they're saying to the grabber what they already said to Finney. Like, yeah, you don't have much time from Griffin.
Today's the day,
motherfucker, from Vance. And then like there's the part where Bruce is like, Finn's arm is mint, and then Finn just like pulls on the cord, and I don't know if it, has just taken all the air out, or, if it actually does snap the grabber's neck, but the grabber is dead.
Yeah. Oh, and Robin called him an hijo de puta, which is basically just a son of a bitch. Like,
oh yeah.
I was like, don't forget about Robin in there. He's just like, takes a second. Well, after that, it flashes back to the cops searching the empty house, and they had kind of given up at this point. And then one of them catches a glimpse of a basement door, and they go down to investigate. And then you see just 5 humps of dirt, and then like one freshly dug hole.
Yeah.
And that's when the cops basically say, this is where he buries the kids, but I think that he kills them somewhere else. And at the same time, Finney is over there. He grabs a piece of meat, throws it away from the door to the dog as a distraction, walks up the stairs, remembers the combination, walks outside. Gwen, I think, is the first person to see him because she's been sitting outside of the house. And then we learn that the house that Finney is in is directly across the street that all the boys were buried in.
Mm-hmm. So Gwen was waiting on the investigation, and then she sees Finney come out. She just runs into his arms. Then the cops, see what's going on. Finn tells them to go to the basement. So the cops go inside. A couple of them, shuffle the kids away. They call an ambulance. They're taking care of him. And then we know, it's over. Then the dad gets there. He breaks through the cops doing the crowd control, and he just breaks down. He apologizes to his kids. He's saying that he failed them, and then he's just on his knees. And then to kind of call back to what you were saying earlier, where Gwen had laid her head on Finn's shoulder after the dad beat her, Finney lays his head on Gwen's shoulder while their dad is on his knees, begging for their forgiveness.
Yeah, and it's like there's so much going on. And then there's a news, the media is interviewing the police, and basically they're saying the grabber is dead. They found the missing boys. He killed them in one house. He owned 2 and buried them in the other.
Yeah, and one little tidbit that I liked is because I assume it was the chief of police initially being interviewed, but then he kind of passes the mic over to the detectives who solved this case. And I just kind of liked that. I thought that was nice, to give credit where credit's due.
Well, yeah, and I mean, if anybody's going to have the information, it's going to be them. But there's lots of movies where, the detectives are just kind of pushed behind and the chief of police just gets the credit.
Yeah. So I just thought that was really interesting. And then one of my other notes was, it must have been nice to own 2 homes in the 70s. So, I mean, just my funny little joke. But then the movie ends. Finney's back at school. Everyone's staring at him. He looks a little different. His hair is kind of pushed back away from his eyes. So, he's showing his growth. He's just walking right into his classroom, and everybody's kind of like, oh my God, that's Finney. That's the kid. That's him. And he sits down to his science classroom, and Donna's sitting there, and she's just like, hi, Finney. Like nothing happened. And he's just like, call me Finn. And then it ends, which is also kind of funny because Finn is Latin for end. So it's like, Finn, done. So now that we're done narrating the movie, I know that was kind of long-winded. I really, 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 really want to know all of Katrina's thoughts on why this is not the most perfect movie ever to exist.
I think I had too high of expectations prior to this, and I really try not to do that sometimes. I was really looking forward to watching it. I think I maybe had different thoughts of what it would be because I was ready for suspense and scary and tension. And I feel I don't want to use the word soft, but it just felt very soft the whole time. I didn't feel anxious or tension much of the movie at all.
See, and I mean, I did see it before you, and I will take some of the blame if I hyped it up too much. Because when I talk about movies, you know, in general, for movies that like I want people to see, I don't tell them anything. I was just like, I love it, I love it, I love it. So I saw it in the theaters, and I mean, it just totally gripped me. I was hanging on to everything. So, you know, I want to hear your perspective on, you know, what somebody else has.
And I do like, I tried looking up other reviews of like people who rated it poorly to see if like maybe something that they said kind of like resonated with me. And I wasn't really finding a whole lot that did, but like I loved all of the characters. I think that they were really well, like everyone had an amazing performance, but I feel like I was missing so much background that like we got like an equal picture of each person, and that we never really got like, I wish I could have had more of a background on the grabber. Like we know so little, and maybe that's why you like him, but I just like, I want to know his background. I want to know like other things, like what are his patterns? How does he choose children? Is he just this? But I feel like I'm missing.
I think that that's interesting. And I wondered if that was part of what your thing was, because I absolutely love that I don't know anything about him, because the short story, like truly is only like 5 pages long. It's just the scene where he gets grabbed, and it's a little different. He gets grabbed and the phone rings a couple times. He doesn't like go through any of like the questions and answers trying to figure out really who he's talking to. He does know that Bruce got taken before him, but he doesn't really know what's going on. And then it's him trying to figure a way out. And then he ends up being able to strangle the grabber. The phone rings and the story ends with him just saying, "It's for you." So there's very, very little to nothing in the actual short story. So, you know, they really built up this whole world with what was going on. You know, we didn't know anything about Finney's background or who the grabber was. But I think that that's, you know, from the perspective of the short story and from a lot of victims, they don't know who the grabber is. They don't know what's going on. All they know is that they were taken and they're just stuck somewhere. Yeah. So I think building up the world outside of that, but still like on Finney's like protagonist side, you know, that there were people working to be able to find him one way or another, is more important, because it doesn't matter who the grabber is or where he comes from. His name is Albert in the books, but it's just the grabber in the movie. It doesn't matter because Finney's already taken. Finney's already there. So we don't see beyond him, because even when he's in the hardware store, like getting the lime and the other tools, we just kind of see like little glimpses of like behind him. So like we're not seeing like him in a daily life. We're not seeing him doing anything else. Everything that he's doing is strictly related to what he's doing or going to do with Finney. And everything else is pieced around what is Finney doing, who is helping Finney, whether it's, you know, the cops or his sister.
Which I feel like,
and then the boys.
Which I don't know. We didn't get to see much of the investigation, but I was like, I feel like the cops were just not doing a great job.
I don't think that they were doing a good job in terms of success rate, but I mean, that's also the thing. Like, it's the 70s.
It's the 70s, yeah.
There's so many kids. They don't have the tech and stuff. They're literally going door to door. Have you seen this child? Mm-hmm. I think that they're putting in work. I think that they care. I think that they don't know. They don't have a pattern. All of the boys that were taken, they're different races. They're different ages. I mean, all the kids, you know, knew each other one way or another. So they're relatively from the same town, but it's not specified that they're all from the same school specifically.
Right.
Max has narrowed down an area based on where the kids were taken, but we don't know. And that's, you know, we don't know anything about the grabber the exact same way that nobody else knows anything about the grabber.
Yeah.
And I think that's great.
yeah,
I get what you're saying.
yeah,
I
and
get
that's
what
fair.
you're
It's
saying.
like it makes me feel like I'm just, which I mean, we just did Autopsy of Jane Doe, and we were left with a million questions, and I love that movie. But I think that movie just gives me so much more detail that I didn't get here. And maybe I'm just like a detailed person, especially when it's like a mystery kind of like crime situation. Like I'm all in it on the details. Like when I watch documentaries on serial killers, I'm like, tell me every single detail that you can. And I just got none of it. So I don't know if it just felt like I loved the character of the grabber. I think he did an amazing job. Like I loved, the way he used his voice and like you said, with his body language, everything about it was really good. And then, not being able to tell, like, is he being sincere? Is he being silly? Is he just being mean? I really enjoyed that part. But overall, as a package, I just was, I don't know. I can't articulate like a very specific reason. Like there wasn't one specific thing that just like turned me off to this movie. It was just like I was just underwhelmed. Like
And it
I
makes me
felt
so sad.
I felt no like tension. I don't know. Like I wanted to feel like, ugh. Like I wanted to feel that, but it just was like, so it flowed very smoothly and there just wasn't much happening action wise, I guess.
See, and that's the thing. It's so sad for me because, maybe this plays into my ADHD-ness because, I'm so into this movie. It's my favorite release of the year. I have looked at like every article about it. I'm so obsessed with it. And then, you're my best friend and you didn't like it that much. And I'm just like, no. So
but I understand.
I brought you down this path of something that you didn't like, and I feel terrible.
Here's the thing.
I understand your critique on that side of things. I just so appreciate the creative choice that happened that I'm okay with not knowing it. And I won't mention other names of some movies that I've seen this year, but there were some of them that like gave me so much irrelevant information to what was going on with the plot, or there were things that like, hey, I did actually need to know why something would have happened this way.
Yeah.
For things to make sense. And to me, the Black Phone just did it perfectly. That's like, I got everything I needed. I had enough of Finn's family background. I saw what his sister and the cops were doing, that it didn't matter what the grabber was doing because the grabber engaged me so much when he was on screen that his past didn't matter, other than the fact that I knew he was a kidnapper and a killer, right. That I was only concerned with what was going to happen.
Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to blame you because I really wanted to watch this movie. Like even prior to
my obsession,
you saying, even prior to you saying that you love the movie and everything like that, like I had every intention to watch this. So you did not cause my disappointment.
Thank you.
But it's, I knew the basis of the movie. Like I knew that a kid was locked up and was talking to dead boys on the phone. Like I knew that prior to watching. And that's really all I knew. I'm sorry. I think it's good that we do sometimes have differing opinions because it makes it more interesting to talk about.
I mean, I guess so. I think we should also have the same opinion about everything all the time because you're my friend and I love you.
That will never happen, but I appreciate you.
But yeah, I mean, I did tell Katrina, I was like, don't tell me anything that you thought about it because I want to be able to hash it out all here. I will say too that, I mean, I'm semi-active on Twitter. Don't follow me. I do not post appropriate things, but I have conversed with the writer of this film a couple of times, like just on random stuff, but I'm just in hopes that eventually we will have enough impact that like somehow our paths will meet and I can just basically worship at his feet or work for him one of the two, because I do have a writing degree. And I mean, because you really liked Sinister, didn't you?
From what I remember, yes. I did like Sinister because that was like the like videotape thing, right?
Yeah.
And the pool scene and the car.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. I did like Sinister, yes.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since I've watched it.
Yeah, I've never met anybody who didn't think Sinister was like absolutely fantastic. There was an article I read that like Sinister, Insidious, and maybe there was one other, I can't exactly remember, but both of them were like technically the scariest movies of all time, because like they did like a study where like people's like heart rates like went up at like certain moments, and they were like just scientifically measuring the data of how afraid people were when they were watching these different categories of movies. And I believe Sinister is number 1 and Insidious is number 2, and I'm like, I love all of those movies. So I just thought that was another interesting tidbit. But I mean, do we have anything else to say about the Black Phone? We've been talking about this one for a long time. This is going to be a long episode. Every episode Katrina and I make, we always start off saying it'll be under an hour. Like, that's our goal. And we've gotten pretty close a couple times, but I think that we've already been talking about the Black Phone for like 2.5 hours. So who knows how long the podcast is going to be, but thank you for sticking around till the end of it.
We appreciate every single one of you. And if you've made it this far, follow our Twitter and our Instagram, because I post at Booze and Boobs, because I want to make TikToks, but if nobody watches them, then I'm sad. Okay.
Yeah. So TikTok, Instagram, and our Twitter, Booze and Boobs.
Patreon is also Booze and Boobs.
Yeah, please support us. We're going to start doing more live streams and getting stuff out and done. So
yeah, we really want to we really want to get like engagement up. We want to hear from you guys, because your feedback is everything, because we can talk all day long and we'll be happy, but if you hate it, then it doesn't really do us any good. Like, tell us, what you do want to hear. Give us suggestions for movies or suggestions on where to post our podcast to make it easier for you to find, to make it more accessible to you.
For sure. But I guess that's it. Thank you for listening. You are definitely a trooper if you made it to the end of this episode. I can already tell. So bye, guys.
Stay tuned. Bye.